What is social cognition? Social cognition is how we use our cognitive strategies by using schemas to process and apply social information in order to understand the social world. It is how we perceive others by prejudging and evaluating and deciding to help others or if that person is deserving of help. How does culture relate to our perception of others and ourselves? Culture is seen through the lens of our brain that shapes our reality. It is our behaviors of how some cultures may not be the norm in our culture. For example, in some countries it may be impolite to speak out loud to a stranger that might come up to you, where it is not that way in our culture here in America. Some cultures may not give you a feedback that you are used to in your own culture. Education may be based on gender. An example of that is in the TED video. Burrell, he talks about how he wanted to go to this conference. It was a women's leadership conference, but he could not attend because he was not a woman, he was a male. It is also our perceptions and how they can be based on certain color of one's skin or maybe what that person may look like. Does perception vary across our culture? Yes, it does. Not all cultures are the same. We do not perceive others the same in every culture. It all depends on the culture that you are currently in. Everyone sees the world through different cultural lenses, but we can change our lens in a way that we can see cultures differently, and we can see their cultural differences. It is also how we perceive and not how we see, as Burrell says in the TED video. So, I did a little bit of research on the Japanese culture and how it is different from the American culture. One of the things I found was that here in America, we shake hands. And in Japan, they bow. Americans shake hands to greet or to show a sign of agreement, like a contract. In Japan, they bow to greet, to apologize, and to thank other people, to show thankfulness. And in America, we tip, meaning we give a tip for when we go to the restaurant, for our food, for good service, or if we're taking a Lyft or an Uber, we tip for a good driver. We show that as a gratitude of appreciation for good service. In Japan, tipping is not available. It becomes insulting in Japan for you to tip any type of money. In the American culture, we are not as lenient or not as you can say, strong on being on time for things. Punctuality is not such a big deal in America. Um, it's okay to be late sometimes for your job or maybe for a business trip or um, a business meeting. Sometimes, we run late for that. But in Japan, that's a big, huge deal. Being on time is a big deal. You do not want to be late. For instance, if you are going to take a train, you better be on time or you're going to be left behind. Being on time at work means that you care about your job and you are a hard worker. So it is a big deal in Japan to be on time. So, what are some surprises that I found with those things that I mentioned with the tipping and the shaking of hands and bowing um, and also if you look here about being on time. So, what are some surprises? Well, tipping was the most biggest surprise that came to my mind. Um, Never knew that tipping someone in Japan would be a big deal. that it would be insulting. Here in America, we're like, well, why not? Let's go ahead and earn some extra money for those expenses that we have. But in Japan, it is not that way. What changed my perspective? Well, there wasn't anything that changed my perspective about the culture of Japan, because I have always known that Asian people were the Asian culture. Um, they were different than us. Very neat and organized, and where we're not here in America. In Japan, like I said, the way they greet people is very different than the way we greet people, but it doesn't come to a surprise with me with that. Um, and it doesn't change my way of how I think about them because I find that very um, enlightening, really. But I did find it a little strange though about the tipping part, but that doesn't change the way I look at them. Um, but I do think that the Asian culture, they are very respectful people and very strict in some of their social life. And I would really love to learn more about some more of the Asian cultures and other cultures as well. So this is my perspective on social cultures and cognitive, um, social cognitive. Thank you very much for listening to um, my PowerPoint.